So very recently, I was asked by a viewer, did you ever do anything not smart as a kid? My answer was a resounding yes. In fact, I'm about to do something that I do not recommend that you do either, and it's pretty obvious why. What you're looking at is an edger with a lawnmower engine on it, and I'm going to repurpose it as a stump grinder. I'm only going to say this once. You're not going to want to watch this unless you're curious to see how this all goes. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Yard Machine's edger, and the problem is that I do not need an edger at all. I do all my edging with my string trimmer, and I'm very happy with how it works. So having one of these giant edgers is totally useless to me, and it's just taking up space in the shed. Now, I'm going to try and modify this edger, but yours might be a little different, so this might not work on yours. So if things are not working out for you, like in the video, please ask about it. I'll be glad to answer your questions. Now, some of you watching might be saying that if I don't need an edger, then just sell it, or better yet, give it to someone who needs it. And you're right. If and when I don't need it anymore, I plan on doing just that, but right now, I'm in need of a stump grinder more than an edger. Now, the plan is to use it like that until I don't have a need for it anymore, then let it go. Now, depending upon the model of your edger, there might be some small differences in the installation or the operation of this improvised grinder. However, the basics should be the same, so the changes I make on this edger should be close to what you need to do to yours as well. Just remember, because you saw it done in a video doesn't mean you should do it either. This is very unsafe, and hopefully by the end of the demonstration, I'll still have all my toes. Now, there are a couple of important things we need to keep in mind, and that is, does the engine have enough power or torque for the job? And do you think the belt and pulleys can handle the amount of stress that you're going to put on them? Now, if for some reason you're questioning if they can do it, you might want to choose a bigger and better model. Now, this edger just barely qualifies, so let me explain the reasons why that is, instead of it being an ideal choice. So first off, it doesn't have the biggest engine, but at 148 cc's, it has more than enough power and torque, although I would have liked something just a little bit more powerful. And secondly, this edger has a couple of large bearings to help guide the belt to the blade. Now, it's not ideal, but the pulleys are in great condition, so I won't have to worry about them. If your edger has more than one pulley and they don't spin smoothly, then I would recommend not using it. If the bearings in the pulleys should lock up and come apart, it could be very dangerous to the person using the edger or someone close by. Now, this edger was in a video I made last year, and I haven't used it all that much since then. But after checking it over and adding a couple of ounces of oil, I'll then add some fresh 100% gasoline with no ethanol to the fuel tank. Now, believe it or not, the gasoline that's in the tank right now is from last year. However, since I stabilized all my gasoline for my equipment, it's still good to use. Now, most of it has evaporated away, and that's the reason why I need to add more to the tank. But once I'm done, I'll prime the engine with some fuel and then try starting it. Now, it is okay to use ethanol fuel, however, it doesn't store very well. That's the reason why I recommend not using it in small engines. So that was the first start in who knows how long. Now, it did take a couple of pulls on the rope, but that's because the pump has to pull gasoline from the tank before it'll start. Now, it did start to smoke from the muffler after a minute of running, but it didn't take long for it to stop. So I'm guessing there was some oil in the muffler, and as it was getting hot, it started to burn it off, but I'm not too concerned with it, and you'll see what I mean later on. So on this model of edger, the blade is always turning while the engine is on, but yours might be different. I'm also not sure why this blade is so tiny, but I'm sure they had a reason for it looking like this. So I did have to move the lever to its lowest position just to get the blade to make contact with the ground, but we won't have to worry about that issue with the new blade. To make taking off the nut just a bit easier, I'm going to use an impact. However, you don't need to use one, but you might have to struggle to get it loose. Also, check and make sure which way you need to turn the nut to loosen them. I'm pretty sure they're all the same, but don't take my word on that. So after looking at the part number that's stamped on the blade, it's supposed to be well over 9 inches, which means this was either cut down or it's just that worn out. Now after measuring the opening in the old blade, it turns out to be about 626 thousandths of an inch, or about 5/8 of an inch, or about 16 millimeters. Now this is important because we need to make sure that the new blade will fit on the arbor, otherwise you'll have to buy a different blade. So as you can see, I decided to go with a 5.5 inch saw blade with 18 teeth, but it's up to you if you want something bigger with more teeth. It's important to know which direction the blade spins, otherwise it won't cut very well spinning in the wrong direction. To make sure, all I did was to pull on the rope to see which way the arbor spins and made sure the teeth were facing in that direction. Now having a single blade is going to make cutting any stump take forever, so I'm going to use 2 of them instead, but I can't stack them on top of each other. Instead, I'm also going to put a couple of 5/8 washers between them. This will give a place for the wood chips to go and also give plenty of room for the cutters to not make contact with each other. So if 2 blades is better than 1, then wouldn't it be better if we had a 3rd blade or maybe even a 4th one? Unfortunately, this is when things get a little tricky. You have to remember that all that power from the engine has to be transmitted through a tiny rubber belt. And if there's too much load from the blades, it could either start to wear the belt out or put more stress on the other pulleys. Either way, we need to balance the load with what the engine can handle. Now, if this was a better machine, then yes, I'd probably put a 3rd blade on it. Just in case I have to say this out loud, wearing some eye protection is highly recommended unless you know where to get some extra eyes. So this is the first stump I want to grind down. Now this is not some 6-inch tall oak stump, but I've been tripping on this thing for a long time and it's time to get rid of it. As you might have guessed by the size of the edger, blades, and belt limitations, I'm only able to tackle small jobs, which was the idea the entire time. Anything taller than this stump, I would have to use my chainsaw to get it close to the ground first. After that, I'd either use the grinder then or maybe let it dry out depending upon what was going on at the time. So as you just saw, no toes were lost and it looks like it did a pretty good job despite taking some time to do it. I basically cut into the stump until it was weak enough to use a sweeping pattern. Now I would like to get this down below ground level by at least an inch or so and then come back with some dirt to fill it in. Now once I got a lot of the loose debris cleared from what's left of the stump, that's when I noticed the ant colony that was living in it. Unfortunately, they're not going to like what's about to happen next, but more than likely, the bulk of the colony is still underground, so most will be safe. I also noticed that there was quite a bit of flex from the arm holding the blade, but I don't think there's much I can do about it. And unless I go into the block holding the arm that's securing it, I'm going to have to live with it right now. Now this time it seemed to do a lot better, and I think it's because the stump is still damp at this level. That means I might have had better luck with a green stump versus one that's been drying out for a long time. Now I did have to hit quite a bit of dirt while trying to get as low as I can. That means the cutters will start to wear out quite a bit, which means I'll have to check on them from time to time and sharpen them when they start to get dull. So as you can see, the stump is now below ground level, and I can come back here in a bit and fill this area in with dirt, which I'm fine with in comparison to a 1-inch stump getting in the way. So how well did this project turn out? To be honest, it couldn't have turned out any better. The conversion was simple. The blades were only $12 for the pair, and I already had the washers, and in the end, I got rid of something that was quite annoying. Not to mention, I got to use a machine that I had no plans on using, so it's now useful again versus just hiding in the shed. So I do plan on using this a couple more times on stumps just like this one. They're spread out in the same area, and a couple are even in the front yard as well. So what are my other plans once I get the other stumps ground down? Well, simple. I'm going to offer to use it on other people's stumps. I'm talking about people I know, like friends, neighbors, and relatives, not strangers. And after it's had its fun, I'll then take the blades off and then install a new edger blade back on it and then sell it. I have zero plans to sell it the way that it is, and it's mainly out of concern for their safety. Once again, I want to stress that you should not do this to any edger. So if it's so bad, why did I do it then? Well, the best answer would be because I didn't listen to my own advice and I did it anyway, but luckily this time, nothing terrible happened. Now, I shouldn't have to say this about other machines as well, because there are plenty of videos out there of crazy mods to mowers, trimmers, and blowers. And if you do watch those videos, all I can say is just be careful and always be safe. So my question is, have you seen any videos like this one where a machine is modified to do something it wasn't meant to, and if so, what was it? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.